Morning everyone. It's 8 o'clock. Day in the shed. Started off real good. Brought the GoPro out to attempt to start videoing, and that fucking thing won't even start. It's the most disappointing piece of shit I've had to spend $800 on, not even a year old, and the grief, the overheating, the battery life, all of that has just been woeful. Don't buy one. There's probably better options out there these days. So now I've got to resort to using the phone, which I'll probably just keep using. I'm sick of wasting money on dumb stuff. But the drink, don't know, I feel a bit different today. I mean, the weather's shit house again. Every day I'm coming in here it seems to be just worse. But we promised me mate we need to get stuck into the Bedford. So once a week now, for a day, we need to be working on Beefy. The big plan is, first of all, and while I was a bit hesitant, still a little bit drizzly outside, but we really need to push Woody out to spin Beefy around and get him back into a workable position again. And we need to drag that barra out. I've got an FG sump we need to put on it because it's a BF barra, and we need to swap the sump over today. And if we've got enough time, I'd like to be picking it all up and trying to lower it into the engine bay and see how it sits. I did do some measurements with a current BF sump on it. We about 50mm too high to avoid these big cross members in here and the bonnet. But with the FG sump, which moves a sump pan to the back, we have about 50mm clearance. So that's where we're looking at right now. Good thing is the rain source stopped, so I can push Woody outside and we'll try and spin Beefy around, get that engine out with a hoist and start doing some work. So hopefully it all works out today. Fuck. Alright, nothing's ever fucking straightforward like people make out, sort of thing. Sorry for the fuckers that have actually done it all before and they don't want to go off any information, but this is what we're actually honestly looking at right now. I googled a lot of this stuff previously, and it did say, because I was asking should I be buying gaskets for the sump, but I'm going to be swapping on, and it says no, the FG sumps are glue on. okay, then I just need to get myself some like RTV type sealant, whatever. And pretty much I've always heard you got to run the windage tray when you're using the FG sump on the BF engine. You got to actually use a windage tray. Honestly, there's fuck all difference between the windage trays, but the only thing I can see is that little cutout there is for when the actual your long oil pickup comes back. It actually sits up into that groove. Apart from that, when you look at this, like, it's not really any different. So needless to say, it does have to be changed over. Next thing I didn't really realise, it's all the actual mains caps that have to be undone to swap that windage tray over, because there's some main cap bolts holding it all in. So having the fucking thing swinging on the hoist like this isn't ideal for that sort of crap. This next thing is I need one extra bolt that has a thread poking out the bottom. That's what we got in around. We've got that one and only bolt there with a thread hanging out the end, because the BF actual sump pickup is very short. It just comes out of the front of a hole here, down, and drops here sort of thing. And we only need one stud, but because the FG one is extra long and goes back here, we actually need another one of these. So when I undo all these main bolts, I've actually got to reuse this one, but I need one more to actually hold it back at the back of the engine, which I don't fucking have that right now. So I'm pretty much got the shits with it already. What I'm actually thinking is today is about trying to see some sort of progress and whether this idea is working or not. So I'm going to slap the actual FG sump on as it sits. No gaskets, no nothing. I'm not putting oil back in it. I'm not fucking around with windage trays and oil pickups. Slap the gearbox back on the back of a few bolts, and we're going to try and drop it into Beefy and actually see if this shit's going to work before we spend too much more time and money on it all. So, I mean, if it doesn't fit and doesn't work, it's just going to get tossed and we'll go back to trying to find a V6 for it. So, and we'll go a different direction. But right now, I just want to see if this theory is going to work. So, and in the meantime, while I'm working out mounts and all that, I can be ordering the parts I need, because what I was getting to before with that FG sump, it says it's a glue-on, but it still does require the half seals front and back underneath the mains, where the original one is an impressed or pressed in sort of seal that goes all the way around. Much better design in my mind than the glue on, but I can't reuse none of that because it's all one piece. So I have to actually buy new front and back main seals, which I don't have. I need the stud, and all that will just set me back 1 or 2 weeks. So let's just chuck the actual FG sump on the block, get the big gearbox back on with a few bolts, and let's try and just lower it in and see how we go. As you can see, why we're doing it, this is the FG, so that's the back, the actual gearbox mount here. The big oil pan is at the back, and then it gets really narrow at the front. Creates a lot more space, which we need. Here's the BF one. Back there is where the gearbox mounts. Very narrow there. And then it gets really fat at the front. As you can see, like the BF one is only coming down to about here. So I gained nearly, what, 100 mil or so, really. So that's the whole idea why we need to swap, because we need to create clearance. We need to create clearance in here. As you can see, with a Pajero shit there, I'm going to probably have to get rid of those oil lines. They're just in the way. They're just a cooler line anyway. As you can see, we've got that big structure beam, and we've got that rod behind it there, which is a bit like a suspension tie rod. So we can't really muck around that stuff. But room wise, shouldn't be too bad. And even if I get it plonked in there and get it mounted, honestly, it's all got to come back out, because as you can see, we've got a lot of finishing off to do. So it's not a bad thing that we're going to just drop it in and mock it up. Really, it gives us a bit more of a direction as to whether or not it's doable. So let's get it all back together again and try and drop it in. Oh, so what do we think of that? Bit of a panic at the start because I was worried about the bloody box planning thing fouling of the way I was going to slide in. But all in all, I don't think that that's too bad. Like I may have a little bit more wiggle room backwards by 15th, but maybe I don't need it. Because here's where the concerns lied. That steering is actually clearing by a fraction at the moment. We have this unused bracket here which is helping keep the engine straight at the moment, and that's sitting on the alternator, but that can be shaved off completely. That isn't needed. And as for that sump bulge, we've got a bit of clearance there for our unwinding balancer, but we're rubbing on it, no doubt, we're hitting it. But that will be very easy just to do the slightest little notch. I can Nico mark because this engine's got to come out anyway, remember, it's not the final time it's in there. So I can notch that and tube it, like hollow tube, half tube it sort of thing, and that will be okay. But that's actually sitting not bad. We do have some room in front still for a radiator, which is good. Possibly even air conditioning condenser. So it's not looking silly. It's actually, I'm fairly happy with that. But there's still one more thing we need to actually try. We need to sit the bonnet on there and see if that clears. I'm a little bit hopeful on that, because the way the engine's actually sort of pushed backwards. It may be just enough to miss. I can't really go any lower. That's pretty much where ideally it needs to be, because even the transmission is sitting pretty, everything's sitting pretty flat, and even the transmission is sitting just nicely right there above the cross member. So yeah, so I've got the straps holding it up at the moment. That's doing a pretty good job holding it. Try. That's where we're up to. So I dare say let's grab a bonnet and see if we can chuck that on. It looks good so far, doesn't it? Let's give it the old hand trick and see how much clearance we've got above it. Or even you could go in there and have a look for us. Can you see up there? Oh, no, it's not too bad. Yeah, no, that's actually clearing quite well. I can get my whole hand. In above right at the very front, up here sort of thing, and it only gets bigger going forwards. Again, I don't know if we can see in through. Put the flash on. Going in deep. You probably saw more than me just then, so I have to go back and look at the video, because once I dropped in that hole I couldn't see much. But bloody happy with that. So where did we get to end of today? Not too bad actually. Sort of finished up a couple of hours ago. Mate turned up, so we started hitting the drinks. But pretty happy with where we are. The barrow's actually sitting there very nicely. I'm actually having a bit on the piss right now. It's sitting on the steering rod, so as the steering rod moves, the angle of it changes a little bit, so the angle of the engine changes a bit, and the steering wheel's just, as you can see, a little bit kicked. So that's why it's slowly leaning down, or slightly leaning down on that side. If I straighten it up, it'll actually probably sit straight. But I think that's not bad, because I could, when I do the mounts, I could probably come up 10-15 mil, and that will clear the steering. Plus, I think it'll actually clear the actual, that big cross member down there with the actual little bit of a sump bulge for the pickup that it has. So I don't think we're in too bad a situation with that actually. I've just ordered, I have ordered some universal barrel mounts that will bolt to the block, and then I just cut and fab the rest of it sort of thing. So we've got them coming. I've ordered the other engine stud for the sump. I ordered the 2 seals for it as well. So when we do pull it back out, once the mounts are made, we can sort the rest of that shit out and drop it in there permanently. Having said that, we're still going to tidy up all the engine bay bits sort of thing, but my mate isn't flushed with cash. I'm doing this at an extremely cheap hourly rate as a bit of a fun project for me. Needless to say, I'm over it and done. I want it finished. So we're at a balancing point of, we're not trying to build a show car. So really the engine bay will be a bit of smoothing over, and I'll probably just rattle can it black stuff like that. That's where we'll probably end up with a few of these things. It is supposed to be a bit of a rat rod, but it's more about focusing energy and effort and money and time into areas that more need it than others. So that's pretty much where we're up to, and honestly, you have to forgive me, I'm still getting used to walking around my actual phone instead of a GoPro, which in one of these episodes you're probably going to see me put it in a bowl of fuel and put a match to it, because that'll just make me feel better. But yeah, and having that radiator in there, like I could do it as a thermofan pull system, and leave a front ready for an air conditioning condenser still, which is possible. But yeah, like I said, we've got the mounts coming, which will be meant, like I said, I could easily lift that engine up probably about another 10-15 mil, because you saw before how much room we had to the bonnet. So, and then we'll be happy as. Let's see, the other part is we've got to try and work out there's the old reservoir there, and all the power steering stuff, so we might be able to adapt that straight onto the power steering pump. Interestingly enough, I haven't really played with this, but these blocks down here on the actual aircon look scarily similar to like the blocks there, so I'm actually wondering how much they'd work. Oh, a lot of the other stuff. There's the vacuum line. It's just got to be probably made a longer one, straight into the engine there. Heater hoses straight off the back, straight up to there. Fuel lines, still got the air-fired pump, which I dare say is probably good enough to run the Barra. Just got to plumb them straight onto the fuel lines of the actual engine. It's just good sort of base to drop something into, really. So yeah, so very happy with what we've achieved today. Could have done more, but it's one of those things, bit by bit. So if you want to see more of the Bedford progress and getting to a point, because the vision is it's going to be a bit of a wild sort of toy car for me mate, really. We're going to be doing a custom stake bed back here, very race inspired, so it's just going to be like metal blue posts coming up and shorter than normal, so it's not stand up too high, and we're going to paint them blue with probably a patina effect on them as well. We're going to have probably custom sideboards, I dare say, running along the bottom down here to the actual mudguard, where we'll roll up and over the wheel, and then have that very modern race engineered look, but then line it with extremely sort of worn, battered looking timber, so to make it sort of practical, like slats in the base of it, but just ripped off a barn sort of thing. The stacks, they're going to be painted black with a lot of other little nitty gritty bits around it. And one thing I'm really keen on doing is I want to fit flamethrowers to these. I've got a bit of an idea as to what I want to achieve with that, but the idea of being able to flick a switch and shoot flames at the top of that as you're driving down the road, or at night time or something like that, sort of tickles my pickle at least. So budget build, but cool at the same time, building it for a mate. And but I really want to have a bit of enjoyment out of it at the end too. So, but that's Beefy. So come along, see him get done, and also too, don't forget about Woody in the background here. We're going to be getting into him a bit more on and off. He's not priority at the moment. I need to sort of prioritise a little bit of time for him, so I can try and bolt on the plethora of parts that have turned up for him. And my mate hasn't got back to me about that cam yet, so I need to hit him up and say what's going on with that, because that's one of the sticking points with it. But we'll do a video soon about how we're going to do the rear arse trim and could be an option for you if it actually works out the way I'm hoping it does. So instead of buying the 2 to 3 grand trim for a WBU, you can go buy a set of Statesman ones for 400 and just join a couple of sections together and make it work. So lots going on. So thank you for watching. We'll catch you later.